I'm Ashley, an 18-year-old university student from California. Life has been quite a ride for me. My parents divorced when I was just 13 years old, and since then I've been living with my mom. Last year, my father passed away from cancer, which devastated me. We were quite close, so losing him crushed me. I can still remember the times we spent together, the stories my father told me, and the lessons he taught me before he passed away. He left me a sizable amount of money in his will that I could only access once I turned 18. All right, that day eventually arrived this year, and I was excited about what it would mean for my future. I didn't know that something weird and unexpected was about to happen, something I still can't fully understand. One afternoon, my stepdad, Kevin, who is in his mid-60s and has been married to my mom for 5 years, summoned me into his room. I felt a variety of emotions as I heard his voice. Our relationship has never been the finest, but I've always tried to be courteous to him. Unfortunately, he didn't always return the kindness. "Hi, Ashley. I need to discuss something important with you," he stated. I was a little depressed. I knew it wouldn't be good news, whatever he wanted to discuss. "What is it?" I tried to sound steady as I asked. He took a deep breath and raised the money. "My dad left me. I think it should go to your stepbrother, Jason. It's necessary for his college education." I was taken aback by his suggestion, but hold on, what? "You're requesting that I give Jason my inheritance. It's absurd that you're asking me to just hand you my dad's money, even though he shares my ambition to go to college." I was taken aback, but Kevin seemed unconcerned. "Ashley, don't be so stupid. And you don't need that money. Even in the event that you do. Jason is more in need of it than you are." "I'm sorry, Kevin, but the answer is no." My heart was racing as I responded firmly. I rejected him, but he didn't take it. "Well, don't push me, Ashley." His voice was rough and demanding. "Calm down, Kevin. You don't need to feel angry." I answered your question in an honest manner. "It has to do with setting boundaries," so I said, "No, is it intended to be disrespectful to you?" In an effort to keep the peace. "I'm saying this to defend myself if you're angry because I said no. Maybe you ought to think about your attitude." The tension in the air was palpable to me. "Let's try to be courteous, keeping in mind that you are also a guest at this place." I contributed in an effort to diffuse the situation. "All right. I don't think that will occur. Goodbye," I said before he could say anything more. I moved away from him, my heart pounding. To tell the truth, I wasn't surprised by what Kevin did. He had a tendency to seem entitled, so I knew that eventually he would ask me for the money. You question, where was my mom during all of this? Well, that's a different story. Mom. Julie seemed to see nothing wrong with Kevin and stuck by him like he was magic no matter what he did. It was strange, because I knew she loved me, but I didn't want to ruin her perception of him. So I did my best to be friendly with Kevin for her sake. Ironic, considering that I was one of the youngest people living there. I often discovered myself acting like the most mature person I was at the time. My mother was out of town, so she wasn't available to fill in. Should she have been home? I was certain that Kevin's request would have angered her. That's why he thought he could manipulate me. He thought he could dominate me because my mother wasn't present. But he didn't realize I knew about his clever plans. I was about to leave the room. I could hear Kevin calling me a bad sister and scolding me for not wanting to give Jason money as he followed me. That was all false, though. I really wanted to help, but I didn't want to be Jason's financial support system. I had no influence over his choices or fate. Like father, like son certainly applied to Jason and Kevin. They conspired to cause mischief, just like Pinky and the Brain. I still couldn't tell the difference between the two, though. "Hey, stay with me while I'm talking," Kevin shouted after me. "You have to listen and behave morally." "Have you got a good reason for that?" I stifled my boiling rage. "Because what's going on with you two?" He raised his voice and yelled, "You're arguing, you woke me up." Jason tells Ashley about our earlier discussion. Jason appeared pretty sheepish when he arrived. I was suspicious because he seemed unsure. I was talking to Ashley's father when we demanded this money because of that important issue. Sure, what was it again? Oh, he added, suddenly more confident, the inheritance money. As we talked about my most important question, my heart raced. I take that you mean the business. You said that this money was for the institution's tuition. I felt a range of feelings such as bewilderment, outrage, and incredulity. They were trying to get me to give up what was rightfully mine. This was not just about the money, it was also about respect and self-defense. Ashley Jason added that family members must support each other. Since college is expensive, I don't want to burden Mom with the financial burden of going. I wish you were a little more generous. I interrupted him generously. You can take my dad's hard-earned money more easily than I can give it to you. It doesn't work like this. Jason, I have plans for that money. It isn't only there, awaiting capture. Kevin's voice was added. Ashley, consider how loved ones help each other and how much we struggle. That's right. Shook my head in overwhelm. Kevin's relatives don't just take without giving back. I don't work as a cashier. You and Jason don't owe me anything. While I stood there, I realized how much self-confidence I needed. I had grown up watching my dad fight for what he believed in, and I wanted to honor his memory by standing my ground. Now, I wasn't going to let Kevin or Jason bully me. The tension in the air was so great that a knife could pierce it. I took a deep breath and tried not to lose my cool in the midst of the chaos. Listen carefully. I know how important college is, and I truly wish you both the best. I can't delay my goals for you because I have a future. Kevin looked astonished, his mouth hanging open a little. Jason walked uncomfortably next to him. I kept getting a sense of control. I'm not saying I won't help eventually, just not right now. I have to focus on my own education and objectives. While I knew this would be difficult, I had to be true to myself and my father's history. I was sick of being the scapegoat, even though Jason and Kevin could be upset. I deserve my dreams, so I will fight for them. That's all. I turned and walked away with my head held high and my heart racing. I didn't look back. Kevin's voice echoed in my ears as I listened to our earlier conversation once more. Yes, he said harshly. That's because that's what it's for. Jason tried to seem enthusiastic as he added, yes, absolutely. I completely forgot. I just woke up and it's for university. I want the money for me. His reaction felt phony and almost planned, and I couldn't help but roll my eyes at their antics. It's a charming attempt. However, Jason, that hasn't happened yet. The answer is no. Refusing to back down, I said, why not, Ashley? A hint of annoyance tinged Kevin's voice. Arguments about what he wanted were pointless. I crossed my arms as the tension between us grew. I answered, we'll see about that, not giving in. For the rest of the evening, there was an awkward silence, and the air was thick with unspoken words. Kevin's normal silly antics and attempts to get under my skin were not like this new attempt to annoy me. It sounded more serious, almost imploring. Though I wasn't prepared to inform my mother, I began to see how gullible and self-centered he really was. I like to handle things on my own, especially after hearing that strange conversation earlier. Ashley stopped making jokes. You need to behave morally and like an adult. Kevin was adamant that it was the right thing to yell and give me my money. My reaction was one of disbelief. Are you all right? Kevin, please wait until I inform Mom. I was threatened with a sudden sense of resolve. Don't tell Julie. As he responded, his voice became gloomy. Why not? She's my mom. She must know how I treat her. I was amazed at his bluster. You think she's worried? Kevin replied, shrugging as if my concerns didn't matter. She will be upset with you for being selfish and wasting her time if you bring this up to her, but I'm just trying to help you. All right. I'm prepared to take that risk. I answered boldly. I warned you not to tell your mother. I was taken aback by the angry tone in which he talked. I had never seen him so agitated over anything before. Especially with regard to the business idea Jason had revealed, he appeared to be hiding something important. I wanted to know what clever plans they were up to, but they both seemed to think I was too naive to notice. As quickly as I was able, I contacted my mom and asked, "Hey Mom, how are you doing?" "I'm all right, my love." "What about you?" She replied with a smile. "Mom, I don't feel well. Jason and Kevin especially appear odd. He is acting more strangely than usual." "Oh, Ashley, don't be overly suspicious. I know you don't like him, but he's not weird." My frustration grew. "Mom," he requested that I give him the money from his inheritance. Really, why would he not do it? She spoke with a tone of incredulity in her voice. He insisted that I do it, as did Jason. That's not true. Clearly in denial, she argued that he wouldn't do it. Trying not to lose my cool, I took a deep breath. "I know you love him for whatever reason, and this is true, Mom. Despite his assertion that money was for Jason's schooling, I think something is amiss." He even turned aggressive when I informed him. "I'll tell you what he told me." "I don't know, baby." "Don't worry," she answered reluctantly, "but I think I need more proof." "I'll provide you with all the proof you need. Just wait and see," I reassured her, feeling more determined than ever. Even if my mother wasn't ready to fully believe me just yet, I understood that I had to be on my guard. I felt as though she had been bewitched by a man, and her rationality had been compromised. I was still determined to learn what was going on with Kevin and Jason, so I was unable to sleep that night. I went to the family computer and looked for something to find out more about what Kevin was up to. I was signing in. I noticed something strange. It seemed that Kevin had forgotten to log out of his email. He had made a grave mistake. As I started reading through the emails, my heart was racing. What I learned left me in utter shock. Kevin's emails had been sent to a woman named Helen. The contents weren't pleasant at all. They seemed extremely provocative and out of place. Was he cheating on his partner? I felt sick to my stomach. I quickly took notes on what I had found, but the following email I read was more strange. It talked of Kevin's plan to divorce my mother and go with this Helen woman. They discussed launching a company and quickly becoming extremely wealthy. But according to what I've read, it appeared questionable at best. Although Kevin didn't send illegal emails, he was reckless enough to have an affair and forget to log out. I knew I needed additional information. There may be anything Jason can provide. I figured that if I played my cards well, he might make a mistake because he seemed less defensive than Kevin. The next day, I tried to find out more about their plans by approaching Jason. "Hi, Jason." "Hello, Ashley. You seem happy today." I said a warm hello to him. "Why not?" "It's a beautiful day." When he smiled, I couldn't help but feel terrible for him. "I have some questions for you." "I've been considering giving you the money after thinking about what you and Kevin said," I said gravely. "That's great. I'll let him know." Jason gave an enthusiastic response. "It must be for your college, am I right?" I held up a hand before giving you this money and said, "Not so fast." "Oh, I see. My educational costs." "Yes," he stammered. "Anyway, I need to be sure you're serious about getting this money," he continued. "I do mean it." Jason refused to back down, but his eyes wavered uncomfortably. "And what about Helen? Is she telling the truth?" Curious to see how he would react, I pressed. "Who is Helen?" he asked, obviously perplexed. "She does indeed work as a counselor for college students," I replied while closely examining his features. The sound of footsteps made my heart sink. As Kevin walked into the room, I could feel the tension building. "I don't appreciate you interrogating my son." "I wasn't doing that," he added in a low, threatening voice. "How my money will be spent was all I wanted to know." I responded defensively. "Well, once you donate money to someone else, it's no longer yours. As a result, you are not concerned about it." He shot back his tone. "It is disrespectful to speak in any way to someone who is thinking about giving you money." I fired back, trying not to lose my cool. "That amount of money is not what you plan to offer me. If you don't, I'll throw you out." When Kevin made the threat, I was stunned into silence. "Dad, this wasn't covered in the contract," Jason murmured. "Shut up," with a startled expression. "I make the rules because I'm the parent. If you don't give me the inheritance money, you can leave." It was incredible what I was hearing. I caught them in their web of deception. I was still recording the entire conversation, but Kevin was unaware of it. I then walked out of the room. I shut myself in my bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest, and shot Kevin a glare. I now had evidence that Kevin was trying to manipulate me and exploit my wealth. I was not going to allow him to get away with this. At last, I would thwart Kevin's schemes and expose my mother to everything. I took a big breath and knew I had to keep my strength up. They wouldn't intimidate me anymore. I started gathering all the evidence I could find against Kevin. It made me think of the detectives who put together clues and hung them on a wall on television. I had audio recordings, screenshots of his conversations with Helen, and all the additional information I could think of. I was preparing for the storm that was coming, until all of it has been collected. During the phone call, I said, "Hi, Mom." "My dear, how are you?" Her voice responded. "Smart, Mom? Are you seated?" I asked, feeling the weight of what I was going to say. "Why? What's wrong?" "Regretfully, I have some news for you that you won't like." I took a big breath to help me relax. As I began to tell my mother all I had discovered about Kevin and Jason, her disbelief was clear. "He wouldn't do that," she insisted, shaking her head. Finally, I played back the tape I had previously made. Her expression altered, and I noticed her eyes widened in surprise. "Why would he say those things to you? Why would he do that to me? Why would such cruelty come from a vile man like him? You married a monster, Mom, and I hate to tell you that. This is terrible. I can't believe I left you and those two sickos behind." "Absolutely not. Mom, don't move. I'm going home now." "Have you locked your doors?" I asked, my heart thumping. "Yes, ma'am. I'll ruin that man and make sure he never shows his face in public again," she replied. "When I'm done with him, he'll regret marrying me. Mama, hurry home. That's the essence. We need to come up with a plan." My mother arrived a few hours later and went directly to my room. When she spotted me, she began to cry and gave me a tight hug. We cried for what appeared to be hours, the weight of the situation pressing down on us. I was thrilled to see her at the frustrated stage, even though it was obvious that she was upset to receive this news. It motivated her to take action. We talked for hours. Hours. Conversation is a tangle of objectives, fears, and hopes. Before the evening was over, we came up with a smart concept. The shock would go unnoticed by Kevin. After a few days, Kevin couldn't comprehend why my mother was ignoring him and why she had come home early from her work trip. He feigned extreme joy, as if he were trying to convince her of his innocence. But after realizing his trick, my mother became more resolved. She was ready to kick him out. I showed her the suspicious texts about his alleged business, and she decided to hire a private investigator. Since she was convinced that the money would not be utilized for any justifiable purposes, my mother was incensed. How is a parent able to be so ruthless and crafty? She knew we couldn't do this on our own. When the private investigator informed my mother of his findings, she appeared astounded. "No, I can't talk." "What did the investigator find out?" With excitement, I asked. "As it happens, he plans to use a laundry to launder money." She said this with a tone of disbelief. "It's an old trick. Whoa. That's not all, though." Am I became intrigued. "No, it's not this woman. He is having an affair with Helen. She has committed drug-related charges in the past. Given that she has been jailed multiple times for conspiring to sell illicit substances, it wouldn't be unexpected if they also traffic in drugs. It's not feasible. What I would not have expected is this. I feel like a curtain has been lifted from my sight. I now see that the man I married is not a man at all, but a demented and insane person. When are we going to face him? Mom. Right now, my adrenaline is pumping through me, so I told her, take my lead. Directed. Determination flared in her eyes. Please wait while I grab my camera. When we got there, Jason and Kevin were huddled in the living room discussing their questionable business plans. As we prepared to confront them, I felt a wave of excitement. We'll have to use this as a front for our business after that. Kevin was talking softly. Everything will be hidden. Pretend to be ignorant while providing excellent customer service. But what about, ow? Who's that? We're now completing Jason's college application. With confidence, my mother entered the room and interrupted. Put an end to the behavior. Kevin, the game is up. We know everything. My voice was solid as I spoke. What do you say? Kevin began displaying signs of frailty. Take it off my face. My mother stated, your innocent act won't work anymore. Smile for the camera. While bringing her phone up to record. Utilize the spoiled brat. Kevin lost his temper and lost his temper. Ashley, are you aware of the length of time you might be imprisoned for planning these crimes? Kevin, we are aware of everything. I argued with him. He tried to seem confused by your conversation. Well, maybe we should phone Helen and ask her what she thinks. My mother's lips formed a sly grin. You both think you know what you're doing. Helen is only a friend, Kevin insisted. He was starting to sound scared. You have no right to search through my possessions, I shot back. Well, the explicit photos suggest otherwise. It's so dumb that people even use emails to cheat these days. Kevin shouted angrily. Concrete. No. You have the gall to keep threatening my child with money that isn't yours, Kevin. Threatening to expel her from my house is not your place. Do you have a mental illness? How could you involve your son in your foolish ideas and endanger him? Additionally, you are not permitted to use this money for illegal activities. My mother's voice. Julie's anger is erupting. Kevin stood there for a moment, unable to speak, and his confidence fell apart. You don't have anything else to say, do you? We know everything, so we're going to defeat you. I asserted that they felt empowered. But Kevin screamed, Get that camera out of my face! My mother refused to back down. He jumped at me out of nowhere, his face displaying anger. My heart was pounding, but I attempted to avoid him. His aggressiveness was unnerving. That's my child you're attacking. You appear to be begging to go to jail. I screamed back, my voice shaking from the adrenaline. You're crazy, you have no knowledge. Kevin spat. I answered boldly, Yeah, tell that to the police, who should be here any moment. Kevin's expression went from one of anger to one of fear. The police, indeed. I want to call the cops because of your behavior today, especially the way you're acting. Just then, we heard police sirens approaching our neighborhood. I had never seen a more frightened Kevin. As if he knew better than everyone, he had always smiled. But when he heard the sirens, his face appeared to go completely white. Please. Julie, you don't have to do this. I could explain anything. His voice was filled with desperation as he pleaded. Keep the judge in the dark. It's cockroaches on you. Talk about my Jason and me, you are not above this. Both of you will be taken into custody. It should teach you a valuable lesson on how to treat me and my child. As the police cars pulled up to our house, I was overcome with relief. The time for justice has finally arrived. The fact that Kevin and Jason's lives were collapsing around them was difficult for me to understand. As soon as the police arrived at our house, I felt both triumphant and nervous. We both knew we had each other's backs when I glanced at my mother. Let's finish this once and for all, I whispered to her, steeling myself for what was to come. Despite my youth, I was old enough to see that Kevin deserved to pay for his actions. The idea of finally facing him made me both anxious and excited, but my mother was determined. Act quickly. Jasmine, don't you think all of this is a bit too much? Was presumably uttered by someone. Kevin's friend is trying to defend him. My mother, on the other hand, struck back. It's not enough. During the setup of the broadcast, I felt a surge of adrenaline. How is our life going? I asked, my pulse pounding with anticipation. More than 3,000 individuals are watching the live broadcast. She smiled as she responded. This will thereafter be important. So, just in case it wasn't clear, she added, oh, in front of everyone, I want a divorce. Following the announcement, which felt like a bombshell, the conversation exploded with comments and reactions. 3,000 people witnessed the entire catastrophe unfold in real time. As soon as the story reached local media and tabloids, our family dilemma swiftly turned into a public spectacle. In the middle of all this chaos, it felt strange to be surrounded by my sick ex-father and his child, yet there was a satisfying sense of justice in seeing Kevin die. A number of his family members left him and ceased to communicate with him, and he also lost his job and friends. As the legal repercussions began to take shape, he was facing serious accusations for all of the schemes he had planned. If the judge deemed it necessary, he might spend up to 20 years in prison. The fact that Kevin will finally be held responsible for his crimes was hard to comprehend. Meanwhile, the police also found Helen, who had been hiding during all of this. Since she was facing the same accusations, I was pleased that she wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else. For us, things were getting better. My mother and I grew closer as a result of what we had gone through on the weekends. On several occasions, we would relax on the terrace while drinking and laughing. Reliving those moments together and realizing how foolish and evil Kevin had been was liberating. We have a greater bond now than before. I said, good riddance. With a smile, I lifted my glass. Yes, my mom responded, her eyes shining with determination. We had accomplished so much that I was sure we were ready for whatever was coming up.